All right, welcome to another episode of The Brown Perspective. This is your host, R.O., and I'm here with my co host, Eduardo. So, Nancy Pelosi found herself in the middle of a controversy this week. For those that may not be familiar with this, salon owner responds to Nancy Pelosi's setup claim after video for salon visit surfaces. So, she's being accused of, again, not following the lockdown protocol, going to a hair salon and even asking the owner to open it exclusively for her. Actually, I don't know if it was just her or there were other people, but that's the accusation, that she asked a business that was closed to open up. And then they caught her in video walking around without her mask on. But I don't understand what the big controversy is with regards to this, because even if you go to a restaurant and you're supposed to put your mask on, you're going to take your mask off when you're eating and you're drinking. So isn't it expected that if you go to a hair salon at some point you might also take off your mask? Or did they give specific guidelines for every single type of business that where you could take off the face mask?
I think that they do have specific guidelines for salons, and I think it does include wearing a face
But
mask
what if she's
at all times.
but a hair salon, they're going to wash your hair, aren't they? They might
Yeah,
do
so
a pre-wash.
I'm sure it depends on the whatever they're gonna do on the hairstyle and what you're gonna do. I think, for instance, for a guy, it'll probably be difficult to wear a mask if they're fading you, right? Because they need to be able to get your sideburns, the back of
Exactly.
your, so it'll be a whole different setup. But I think for me, it's just that's interesting that that the president and the administration tried to make this an issue when you had when he hosted over 2,000 people over at the White House with little social distancing and no masks in the middle of a pandemic.
Yeah, and when he himself has been responsible for people not taking this too seriously.
Hmm.
Yeah, he's just trying to score political points with this. Like I mentioned earlier, he before we started recording, he's trying to play into the angle that Nancy Pelosi, look at her, elitist, asking a business to open up just to get her hair done, and then I don't know if they mentioned possibly the price to try to make it about how much money she spends just getting her hair done. But I wouldn't be surprised if that's also what they were going for, right? To try to portray her as this out of touch politician above the own laws that they want the common person to follow. Let's
Which is
see.
BS because I mean, actually, I feel, well, I think it made add up in terms of how much women paid for their hair styling versus men, because I think we just go more often and maybe they don't have to go as often, but I feel like it's a lot more expensive
It is more
for a woman
expensive.
to get
Yeah.
their hair done than a guy. So I feel that's maybe part of it is how women, I think they call it the women tax, right? That women just happen to pay more on a lot of things that guys usually don't have to pay as much for.
Yeah, but I think it is technically it is more difficult though to deal with the woman's hair, isn't it? Because a guy goes in there and he gets a haircut in 15, 20 minutes and he's out. And I think for women it takes a lot longer. And then they have to do the pre-wash. Don't they do washing, pre-washing, and then they have to make sure they cut the hair properly, they treat it. I don't know, but I would think it's more difficult.
Yeah, it's a little more involving, but I think some depending on the type of style that you do, it may not be as much work. So
But here's the thing that they are. If this, I was reading this earlier, which says at the time salons in San Francisco had been closed for months due to the coronavirus pandemic. They were allowed to start reopening on Tuesday, a day after Pelosi's visit. So technically, she did break the law, didn't she? If the business is opening up, I mean, we don't know if the business opened up because at her request,
well,
but
yeah, it
it's
might have been just a visit. Like, so she might have been the only client there. It was only her and the stylist. So it's not, and I'm sure, because I'm sure throughout this pandemic, people have been getting their hair cuts. Either the stylist goes to your home, or you go to theirs. I'm sure there's people who just need to get their hair done that have been able to cope that. So um,
Yeah, this clarifies also. Look, this business offered for the speaker to come in on a Monday and told her they were allowed by the city to have one customer at a time in the business. The speaker complied with the rules as presented to her by this establishment. Okay, so this is conflicting. These are conflicting statements. So the hair salons are supposed to be closed and they didn't open until the day after, but this business is saying they got an exemption. So is it possible that specific businesses were allowed to open beforehand? Because I mean, this is
maybe.
something that can be proven, right? This is, I mean, you can dig into to see if this business, there has to be a written or some type of proof that says that this business was allowed to open before.
I'm sure that it can be found, but then again, I think it's just haciendo una tormenta en un vaso de agua.
Yeah,
Like, she needs to get her hair done. She's a political figure. She's a public figure. She has to do interviews. She has to do all these things. So I think that it's part of what she needs to do to do her job.
Leonardo's lawyer said Q's, is this the name of the salon, had been violating coronavirus health orders for months, and that photo and videos show Q's has been doing client care at the salon as far back as April and up until just a few days ago. Crazy. This guy
Crazy Nancy
so
Pelosi.
irreverent. He doesn't care. Crazy Nancy Pelosi is being decimated for having a beauty parlor open when all others are closed and for not wearing a mask. Well, look, I mean, I think there's something to it here, but again, just how much outrage it should cause, I don't know. But it points again to the entire hypocrisy again of this lockdown, because a lot of businesses are not following the protocol. A lot of businesses are opening like this. I didn't find anything here that says that the business can prove that they got an exemption about it. Because if don't you think that if the business had that exemption that they would mention it? That it would be like the thing that they said, this business posted this letter saying that the state gave them permission. At least just from reading this, maybe I'm missing it here. Let me see if I can find that. Pelosi told reporters on Wednesday she takes responsibility for trusting the word of the salon, that she's been to many times when they say they could accommodate one person at a time. So she's throwing them under the bus. She said they now owe her an apology for setting me up. See? So that's what I'm saying. So if the salon is claiming that they got permission, but now she's throwing them under the bus, that means that they can't provide that proof that they were allowed to open. But again, she's just throwing them under the bus. She was trying to get her hair done and get away with it, and she was technically doing something illegal. And not only that, she is also helping somebody else commit something illegal, or even getting them to do an illegal activity if she is the one that asked them to open up. But maybe they were already doing it. Maybe they were already seeing clients even before her. Either way, this is illegal stuff, right? So how many times have you seen the video of the cops cracking down on black people for not following social distancing rules in the sidewalk of their homes? There's a video
No.
that I saw a few days ago from New York. So again, the double standard that the politicians do get away with these things, but the common person doesn't. So sometimes it feels like the rules are meant there for a group of people, and there's a group of people that they don't apply to.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, but she's just.
Well, speaking of rules, didn't you have your own experience at the hair salon?
Yeah, well, I went. I called them ahead of time. So I asked them if they were open and seeing people, because in LA you are allowed to open, but you're supposed to do it outdoors. You're supposed to do it outdoors, and I think there's supposed to be distancing. But again, I'm not too familiar with the for every business by business. I'm not too sure what the specific requirements are. So I know for restaurants it's supposed to be outdoors. I think for barbershops it's supposed to be outdoors as well. But when I called them, I just asked them like, "Hey, are you guys open?" And they said, "Yeah, we're open." And then So I went, and so when I got there, well, I didn't see anyone outside, but I did go and I signed up, and they said, yeah, you have to sign up, and then you have to wait for us outside of in the parking lot, so that we can call you, and once we're ready, we'll come and call you. So yeah, so they took my cell phone number and then my name, and then they did call me when I was out in the parking lot. So to me, that all seemed pretty legit, that they were
Hmm.
following a process. And so I thought this must be the process that they were given, that you can open your business, maybe either outdoors to have multiple seats, or inside only one at a time. So that seems reasonable, right? But so then when I went in there, I'm getting my hair cut, and then the cops pass by, and the owner tells the girl, "Hey, hey, hey, hurry up and run outside the alley because the cops are coming." But I think he was just teasing her, because I think the cops had already made a few rounds around there,
Oh,
and they hadn't said anything. But because he teased her about that, I asked him, I was
you
like,
got nervous?
well, I asked him, I was like, is this place not supposed to be open or what? I was just asking, I was just joking. And then the guy said, yeah, it's not. I was like, oh, crap. So I was
There
like,
you are, breaking the law,
yeah,
about to get
exactly. So
arrested.
I ended up in the same exact situation as Nancy Pelosi. But look,
You're Nancy Pelosi liberal, bro.
dude, I'm just a guy. Maybe this is right. This is going to come across as me making excuses for myself. I'm just a guy that I went to this place. If I get caught in there by the police officer, no one's going to give a crap about it. I'm not Nancy Pelosi with a staff of people that can confirm and do research and verify, hey, can you check to make sure that that place is actually operating based on the guidelines? I mean, but what I'm saying is that most people, this is what most people are doing. Most people are just going to resort to doing things illegally to stay open and to keep their businesses going.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I don't know why, but the whole term illegally is kind of, because technically it is illegal, but at the same time, people are trying to comply with the guidance and the rules. And yes, I guess it's illegal because to an extent we're not supposed to be doing it, but I also think that they're trying to do something that can be done, but it just has to be done in a safe manner. So, you know, salons were supposed to be open as long as they could do things outdoors. But when you think about it, how hot it's been,
Hmm.
how difficult it would be to get a chair and things outside and, bring it back and forth, like that's difficult to do. So, people are just adjusting to a very difficult situation. So I guess my whole thing is like, yeah, is it legal? Yes, perhaps, but is it worth is it worth enforcing that? And I think in some instances it is, right? If you're having a restaurant that's operating at full capacity, or a salon that has a lot of people waiting and all those things, that yes, you need to enforce that. But there's some gray there, that I think as long as you're doing it safely or trying to be as safe as you can, is it really breaking the law?
Well, technically, yeah, but you're saying how harmful is it? It's not the same as throwing a party and having 100 people over,
Yeah.
especially in the case of my experience with the barbershop. Like I said, it to me it looked like they were following a process, and the process made sense to me as something sensible. It's like, oh, I could see this being the right set of rules and guidelines that they received by the state, because they were doing one person at a time, or maybe two, because they have multiple chairs where you can sit and get your haircut, but they are more than 6 feet apart. So they may have been doing two at a time, but that still seems like it's a sensible solution to this. So that's why I was surprised when they told me that no, he said technically we're not supposed to be cutting the hair inside. We're supposed to be doing it outside. So the barbershop could open, but they were supposed to be doing it outside. But the guy said that he just hadn't gotten around to setting up, because you're supposed to set everything up outside. So they were just doing it inside. And so I guess in that case, just so that I don't end up being a hypocrite here by pretending like this situation doesn't apply to me, as well as Nancy Pelosi. So let's just go ahead and say that both Nancy Pelosi and I were duped by the establishment for letting us know that they were open. Well, I mean, can you really use that excuse? Can I use that excuse? Because I could have easily looked up the rules for barbershops, and
Hmm.
I could have said, what are the rules for barbershops being open? And but I chose not to. I chose to take their word for it. In that case, who gets in trouble? Is it the establishment, or is it the patrons of the establishment, or is it both? I would think
I
they
think it will be
find the
both,
establishment.
right? But the establishment will probably be more difficult on them because they know they're the ones that are regulated, and they're supposed to know what the procedures and what the rules are. And then to your point, I think the consumer usually trusts that, okay, if they're open, it must be because they have the ability to be open and be operating right now.
Yeah, you would expect the business to know the rules, as you said. The customers, you could put the burden on them to also know. So I think you could fine them. So all right, fine. So if there's a fine that's going to be levied against the someone like me for having gone to that place and not doing my research to find out that it was open, what would that have been? How much are they fining people? Like a few $100, 500, 1,000. I know in some places there's those fines are pretty hefty. So let's see, Los Angeles, Los Angeles. Um,
And this weekend is a long weekend, as we know. This is Labor Day weekend, so unfortunately, we'll see how many people abide by social distancing.
yeah, I'm trying to see. It says here, okay, those fines range from 100 for the first offense to 500 and a 30-day permit suspension for multiple offenses. So this is for businesses. Beginning at the end of August, county health officials told reporters are fines that will be issued to non-compliant businesses. Those fines again range from 100 to 500. So if that's how much the business is going to get fined, if you're going to also fine a client that went into that business because they didn't do the research, then I would think it's going to fall. It's going to be a little bit lower than this, right? So let's just say $100. So let's say I'm supposed to be fined $100 for going to that barbershop. Then you should fine Nancy Pelosi $100 as well, or however much the city of San Francisco says that they're going to fine people. I'm not advocating for this. I there should be consistency with how they apply these things. And if they're finding people in LA and in San Francisco who get caught doing this, then and Nancy Pelosi got caught, then she deserves a fine, right?
Yeah.
I'm not pro. I'm not a libertarian, but I'm also not. So I'm not for the state being able to fine people. But they already passed that law. If you want to fight that law, you fight it before they pass it. You organize to get politicians elected that are going to go against that. But once the law is in place, you can resist it and fight it, but you can still get fined, right? So you
Hmm.
I don't agree with the fine, but if we're gonna be consistent, then yeah, then if they would have caught me, then I suppose they could have fined me as well. They should fine Nancy Pelosi also.
We'll see. I'm sure that they may have to.
You think that they're still going to try to pull something against her? She's already throwing the establishment under the bus and saying that they lie to her. But I already made the argument that you should be an educated consumer as well, and it's not that hard these days on the internet to go and find out.
Yeah, but I think it's if the business gets fined and then she gets fined because of the public, she's a public figure. To your point, if she has to pay $100 or however many fine, I think she's willing to pay it because to your point, she proves that she's not above the law and that she may not agree with it, but I think she can do it. So
Yeah,
I think and she's not. In some ways, I feel like this is a non-issue. Like she didn't respond to it on Twitter, and I think she just focused on what it was a setup.
but
I
how was it a setup though? That's the part that I it's
Well,
not.
how did the Trump administration get that the tape, right? So they must have somehow known, okay, which what's her salon? Can we talk to the owner? Can we get that footage? And at some point, whoever gave them the footage should have known that, oh well, questions are going to be asked and people are going to know which salon this is, and that's probably going to put us in a complicated situation unless it was maybe somehow it was an employee who just decided to steal the footage and send it to the White House for whatever reason. So I think part of it is what's what's the point besides showing that maybe she just sneaked in a haircut, with a lot of people are having to live with greñas in the past few months, and it's fine.
Yeah, but when I think about setup, though, I'm thinking that somebody laid a trap for her. But her staff, someone from her staff, called in for the appointment.
Hmm.
Now she could be target. She's a target. So you meaning that someone's following her, scrutinizing her every move, waiting for a moment when she's gonna screw up, so that they can make that, so they can publicize that. But that's no different than what the media does for a lot of politicians, or what these politicians do to each other when they are uh, uh, doing ads on television, disparaging each other. So
Yeah.
but that's the domain under which she operates. Why is she surprised that the Trump people were following her around or looking for any dirt on her? Nobody set her up. Nobody called her to say, "Hey, Nancy, we've noticed that your hair is looking a little disheveled. Why don't you? I think you could use a what do you call it? A touch up." Nobody did that and try to get her to go in. She did it. Somebody was just scrutinizing her every move, and then they released it to the media. That's
Yeah.
uh but look, I don't know. Is it a big deal? I don't know. But maybe we can ask the people that got their ass beat by the police officers in New York for being on the sidewalk and not following social distancing rules. Maybe they'll think it's a big deal that nothing's happening to her, right?
Yeah, that's true. And I think so many salons and small businesses who are struggling, who are following the rules, who are not doing what this particular salon was doing. Yeah, and I think that's the type of thing that they're trying to get at. And it is unfair and it is messed up. And the reality is I'm sure that there's people that are doing other things, right, to um, somehow bending the rules and they just don't get caught. And to your point, part of it is because they're not being, I'm sure there's businesses in Hollywood,
Mm-hmm.
West Hollywood, or some of the rich parts of California where this is happening, but they're not, the police is not driving around there. They're driving around in el barrio, in the ghettos.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Over police neighborhoods.
yeah.
And,
So,
yeah, and let me just clarify that I don't agree with Trump in this situation. I'm just trying to analyze Nancy Pelosi's her actions, independent of what Trump did. Because Trump, I'm not aligning with Trump in my terms of criticizing her. Because Trump doesn't care about any of this stuff. He doesn't care about businesses surviving, about businesses opening up. He just cares about himself, and he cares about his numbers and his electability. So he's just exploiting this situation for his personal benefit. He doesn't care about any of this. And so I'm criticizing her um, from a different point of view. From a point of view of someone that says, if you're going to punish the people in the sidewalk who are not following social distancing, then we need to be consistent. But he's doing it because he just wants to get people pissed off at Pelosi so that they can vote for him. And he's doing it for the wrong reason. He's he's a very divisive president, so he's creating division amongst people, and he's trying to exploit that. So just want to put that out.